is originally put together for a lightning talk. So, unless I really mess up, we should have time for discussion. Yes. Cool. So I'll start. Yeah. Thank you for coming, for attending this. My name is Eduardo. I'm an SRE, site reliability engineer by training and profession. I work for Google during the week, and I work on the Agora with others like Vera, who is here as well, mostly the weekends and free time, but it is very much my passion. So I came into the knowledge tools, personal knowledge management tool space only about a year and a half ago, after the wikis and so on before. And the topic of this talk is the Agora, which is our humble contribution, experimental in nature, potentially to this space. That will be the introduction. So yeah, what is an Agora? It is many things, depending on the day and which facets of it we want to explore. And this goes for everyone, because an Agora is first and foremost, although here it is last, it is a space. We know Agoras, there are Agoras in the real world, and we can extract some meaning from those by finding the Agora to be precisely a space, in particular a common space, or a public space that can be managed by a community as a commons. So lofty words perhaps, but that's the goal we have when we set out in this experiment. What it also is, a bit more concretely perhaps, is a distribution knowledge graph. It is a graph assembled out of the pieces that users contribute. And these pieces in particular, as you will see right now, are their notes. So, many of us here take notes already, and not always public notes, but, it is very common for us to have and this goes to some extent with the ethos of the digital garden, I believe, to be, open with our notes and to some extent, to publish them. So these kind of nodes are those that are integrated in the Agora into something that is very much like the pieces, but like it happens sometimes, hopefully, a bit also different, a bit new. Right, moving on. The idea here is to have to define together as a community, those that are interested, like those I think here perhaps, to define a vision for an integration space, a space we can assemble together out of our individual outlooks. So we start with individual nodes, we contribute some of them, a subset, right? And we try to, best effort, perhaps integrate them into social constructs. And the Agora right now implements like a very simple, straightforward way of doing this, which even though it's very simple, we believe it already adds some value. So I hope I will be able to show you some of the value today. The idea here behind the Agora is to try to make it so that we don't require very much of people that are contributing their content, their notes, their knowledge, their experiences to the common pool. That they maintain control over their creation. So we are like more of a publishing platform or like a distributor that like an actual host for their actual content, and that the tools we develop together, based on the affordances we get out of this integration, essentially should be free and open source, which is basically we start from that. We know that there are many tools in the space that do not necessarily go after like open source and free while still being good. and very useful to people. But we believe that a common space, like an integration layer, should be maximally inclusive. And to be thus, we believe that as far as we can bring it, it should be free and well inclusive, right? So this is one of our precepts that we have here. As I said, we also want to require as little as possible from people. Essentially using the Agora should be as close as possible to just taking notes. Modulo some optional conventions, right, that you can make use of while you take notes to get some extra benefit out of the system, hopefully. But even in those conventions, one of our design principles is that we want to make use of the convention that people already use instead of like inventing too many new ones, right? So, so far so good. Of course, these are all like aspirations. But we believe that it's perhaps worth stating because we are, of course, at the beginning, it seems hypothesis, right? We're at the beginning of potentially a very long-lasting movement. And the vision we set out with has the potential to influence, the future disproportionately, right? So this is why it's so beautiful that we can be here exchanging views, right? Okay, so, but enough of the vision, I guess, for a bit. How does it work? How does it look like? About looking like, you can see to the right, I hope I had some time to do a quick demo, but essentially, the way the Agora works right now, it is sort of like a sequential wiki, in this very simple sense. If one Agora user takes a note on some entity, as it can be reconstructed, wiki is a good term, and another Agora user does the same, the Agora will first try to determine this using so far very simple like procedures, but then reminded of the previous talk, Beyond Knowledge Graph, that happened in just in the previous slot, that of course explored machine learning techniques and embeddings for the purpose of doing this clustering, essentially, recently to clustering to some extent. Right now we don't do that. We don't do anything fancy. We actually just say if two nodes have the same title or roughly so, they are essentially part of the same node. So the Agora node, this node in this knowledge graph we're trying to build, is essentially a composite node assembled out of subnodes, with each subnode coming potentially from a different digital garden or different even wiki or any other corpus that has been attached to the Agora. So in this example to the right, I don't know if you can see this, there are like 3 different nodes talking about solid, which is, different things, which also makes it interesting. But, you can have different definitions of the same entity and so on using conventions. In any case, this is what Agora does. Now, how does it do it, right? We are trying to go for, the easiest thing possible. Like I said, as a proof of concept. In principle, the Agora is any integrator that, for free tries to add value to corpuses of nodes, right? In our particular Agora, we are trying to experiment with having the simplest iteration procedure, like I said, and also trying to just run it for free without any kind of commercial interest. But going a bit further, how does it actually work technically, right? I mean, and it is, again, the question, the answer is probably as, the simplest we could make it work. So the Agora is all Git based. So, we look around and we try to see, what nodes were actually note-taking tools were producing and how people were publishing their nodes. And we conversion these because it's the simplest and most easy understood thing possible for a particular audience. So essentially, what we have is what we call a Git interlay. Interlay coming from the terminology of the underlay project, if you know it. Samuel Klein is here from the project. And the idea here is that you can assemble a graph of repositories, essentially. So this interlay, because Git has support for this, you can, of course, like essentially you can clone the repositories inside the repositories, or you can use some modules. Both ways yield the same. And essentially what Agora is in its very core, it is a set of Git repositories that belong to other people, belong to the users taking the notes, right? And that Agora tries to pull and detect changes and integrate them. It is as simple as this. Of course, this makes it so that publishing to the Agora sort of depends on you already have your notes hosted elsewhere, right? So we end up with this 3-step process for joining the Agora, which you can see here. So first you need to take notes, and you can do that with any tool. Asterisk, right? We support any tool that generates Markdown or a Markdown export. We have some support for Over mode if there are any Emacs users in the room, and we started with that. But the intention here, time and resource permitting, is to support any formats that people want to use to store their notes. Anyway, so you take notes, first step. Second step, you publish your notes, and we default to Git. We could very much as well also get your content from any other source, but Git has many advantages. So right now, all the users of the Agora are using Git, this Git procedure. After doing this, which note, these are the steps you will already take if you were to take your notes and publish them on a static site, or publish them by independently, which it will be. It's great if you do. After this, you only need to let an Agora maintainer know about your garden and indicate the fact that you want to join the Agora, and then the Agora will start to pull your notes until the time you want to leave the Agora, and then we will of course remove you from the Agora, and your notes will just disappear from the Agora because your notes are under your control in your repository. This is essentially the scheme we have right now, which introduces some technical complexity to the process of joining. We want to work on this, but we also believe that at this stage of the experiment is a reasonable trade-off. Hopefully, you think the same. And with this, this is the end of the lightning talk, I guess, and I would like to perhaps move on to a QA or a demo if you want. But there's a few things we could talk about, which we have been developing on top of this interlay, right? So the first 2 points here are perhaps of particular interest to others after seeing the schedule. So we have essentially both Agora Actions and Agora Protocol. They intersect to some extent with conventions that people use or could use in their note taking. So essentially, there are ways of writing your notes so that you communicate either an intent, so you want something to happen with your note, and that's an Agora action. Or Agora Protocol, you want to communicate some a structure, like a tree-like structure, in a way that is it only depends on essentially nested lists. If in the tool you use, which is most, you can use nested lists, you can use Agora Protocol, right? So these are two extensions we are doing in this experimentation phase, right? We also have wiki links everywhere, which is going back to what the Agora assumes of the gardens it reads. It tries not to assume much. Like Agora Protocol and Actions, like I said, they require some structure, some conventions in your notes, but they're optional. The only thing that the Agora really requires, to some extent, to integrate is the wiki link, which is, like it was mentioned elsewhere, common to many tools. So because we believe in the power of the wiki link here, precisely as a, perhaps an integration a democratic integration force, we hope. We are trying to develop WikiLinks everywhere, this sub-project, which essentially is about trying to make WikiLinks work, well, I won't say everywhere, but in as many places as we can. So we are developing a Chrome extension, a Firefox extension, so web extension, to essentially turn WikiLinks, square bracket, entity description, square bracket, no matter where you write them online, turn them into linkified, actually, link those to the Agora of your choice, which could very well be just your personal garden. If you can think of your personal garden, if you run your own Agora, you'll do it anytime, it's open source. It could be like a singleton Agora, to which you could later hopefully invite your friends, right? It needn't be like a public first effort. And with this, yes, are there any questions? We have like 9 minutes, so we could have some questions. And if you're interested, I can show you the Agora in action. I haven't been able to keep up with the chat. So if you could just ask your question by unmuting, that would be amazing. Any questions? Okay, so interrupt me anytime. I'll just give you a unprepared tour of the Agora. So let's see what happens. This is the Agora. Its look is a bit 90s. I have both been told and thought of. It is very much the design. It is influenced by the fact that first, I am a terrible designer. Second, I really like the internet of the year 2000. And to some extent, that this is the second is a rationalization of the first, perhaps, but it is very much inspired by that. There's a few things. Let's see. So one of the core of the Agora experience, or the thing where it adds value the most right now in its current relatively small state, is in this multiplicity aspect. Essentially, Agora, by integrating your nodes into the Agora, what happens is that you see content that is relevant in a perfect context, which is when you look up your own nodes. This is something that happens by using this, right? So you purchase your nodes to the Agora, they are available everywhere, of course. You have search. And this is a special case. This is a node for today, and because Neil, a different Agora user, has taken a node already for today, I can see what this user is doing, what he's doing as I use my own nodes. This, in general, is where a lot of the beauty of the Agora comes from. Because, what better time to read other people's takes on X than when you are precisely interested in X. To some extent, this is like a very solid search flow, we believe. And while navigating the Agora, I personally get surprised all the time about the things I find. One of the best flows is that in which I look up a node. I haven't written a note. I think I should have, because it's something I'm interested in. I realize that my garden doesn't have a note, but someone else does. And that's a very high value journey that we have already, even with this. We have a relatively small number of users. It's like a tight community. Of course, you have here, so going back to this idea of the multiplicity value, you can explore the Agora very, very simply, but essentially based on the definition of nodes, which have been defined by the most people, which usually means they are interesting nodes, and you can read different takes on the same subject. This, for example, is the example for the node Obsidian. After the actual core node, which is the node itself, is all the fragments that were volunteered by people from the gardens, like this is coming from my garden, this is coming from theirs, etc. You have also a few different sections. So first we have like this is an optional service called the STOA, where you can get like a word writable document for any node, so any context. And this essentially makes it so that you can always write something on the Agora, even if you don't have a user. You have some context exploration, some limited graphing support, and of course, back and forward links. We also have pulling and pushing, which are 2-hour actions, which I will cover shortly in a minute, that essentially you could think as typed links or as annotated links. So in that sense, as you will see, by using a convention, the Agora graph actually behaves more like a hypergraph. If you are into like that kind of thing, if that doesn't make sense, I mean, it barely makes sense to me, so don't worry about it. But it's something that is optional and can be used. And after that, of course, the Agora tries to essentially offer as much context as it can. And as reading, when you reach this point, you can keep reading by just knowing that you can essentially bring in different other nodes that were relevant to this one. So essentially, it lets you build something akin to a reading list dynamically. And then, of course, you have search, and we try to be pro-social for the internet, even though we are very small. Essentially, if you got this far and you didn't find what you wanted, you can very easily click on and and do some research right elsewhere. And with 2 minutes, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, a short thing about our actions, which just demonstrate essentially an optional convention you can adopt. So essentially, our actions, we can actually see them. Yes, that's a great question, Samuel. Yes. Okay. Just quickly, for example, like a Go link is a thing that is enabled by our action. If you have any link in your notes and you prefix it with the hyperlink or the wiki-link Go, what that will happen, what that will make it is that you can then do things like Go Obsidian, and then essentially be redirected to that URL. So essentially, this lets you easily designate a canonical URL for the entity this node is about. Over time, as we use this essentially yields a sort of like very coarse, but a high signal web index that can be shared by the community. So this is an example. We don't have time to explore more actions, but this is an example of the kind of thing that, I can use Go links in the Agora even for Go links I didn't create, which is the beauty of the social collaboration aspect of it. And the same for the other actions, which are a bit more complex. Great question by Samuel, so I will answer that. Samuel asked, how do I add a garden to the Agora? Which is a great question. So if you have your files in Git, you essentially can. The easiest thing is you can contact me. If you go Flancian if you are look up Flancian in the Agora, that's me. And if you go to sign up, of course, you can essentially you have information to sign up. The Agora is run actually not by me alone, but by the Flancian collective. You can reach out to any member of the collective to join. The sign-up process is, actually you have to talk to a human for now. We will change this, but for now, because we are a small community, we are growing. We want to grow judiciously, and we're investing in other tooling for now. But we expect to have automated sign-up within 1 or 2 months, probably 1 month. If you don't have your notes in Git, and we are over time, you can reach out anyway. You can tell us where you take notes. It doesn't matter if it's on papers. If you want to share them, we'll help you share them, because this is what we want to do. This is the heart of the matter. And with that, we are over time. So thank you very much. Yes. Thank you.
That was cool. Thanks, Flancian.
Thank you.